We are back. All right. Before I introduce the second speaker, I wanted to just give a shout out. Hopefully, two of our organizers are watching. Unfortunately, two of them landed in the hospital this week. One with a broken limb, I think, from a baseball game. Another with a condition that's going to require surgery. So we certainly miss them and wish them speedy recovery. So on to our two captains who have joined us. Captain Paul, Captain Sherry. Sherry's going to field the Q&A section, but we're going to hear for how many sailors are in the room?
I was going to ask that.
Yeah. Okay.
Any cruising boaters?
Want to be more.
Want to be more? Exactly. Well, they're going to help all of us, figure out how to make it easier. So both of you, welcome. Paul,
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. As you just heard, I'm Paul and Sherry, co-founders of SlipSure. And
It works.
All right. So the pain point that we recognized, and many of you may not be familiar with, is when you're out cruising and you have to put in for the night, you got to find a place to tie up, get a mooring, has been a very difficult process for years. It used to be the VHF radio, it's the cell phone, do you have room for me, what are your boat's dimensions, did they get the credit card, let me switch you back to the office. Terrible process. And then add to that, often when you're doing this, you're doing it because the weather just went bad on you, somebody doesn't feel well on the boat, or you just got an engine light panel. So you have a stressful situation, you're trying to find a place to put in. So Sherry and I, recognize that, we're using OpenTable, we're using Hotel Tonight, we're using these apps, and why couldn't those principles be applied? When we looked at it, OpenTable works great because, there's one butt in one chair, and similarly with the hotel. But you have a lot of variables with boats, the size of the boats, the size of the slips, timing to it. And dock masters, I'll just say, tend to be a little bit tech adverse. So the solution we built, there we go. The solution that we've built, and this is now a live product, is when you first open the app, we show you the marinas that are closest to you. And the reason for that is if you have to get in, we're going to tell you where to get in. Obviously, you can search anywhere in the country, but this is what makes it a business for us instead of a directory. If you see a price, that means there's a slip available for your boat tonight, and in 2 clicks, you're in. No one else can do that. There's not an app out there that can show real-time availability of slips. When you go in, we'll tell you more about it. You can also filter. So if when you want to go in, you want to get a pump out, 50 amp service to run the air conditioning, whatever it is, we'll show you those marinas that have those options for you. When you book now, it's a typical process, confirmation page, and immediate. I'll mention now that we are night of, it's going to come up later, we're night of, no cancellations, no refunds, which people are used to that in a same-day market. So one of the things we had to crack the code on is how do we make this very simple for marinas? And we said at the outset, if a dock master, if a marina has to spend more than 2 minutes a day on it, they won't do it. They simply won't. I won't go through the details of it, but what we did is we allow the marina to set up the dimensions or profile of their marina just once. And then all they simply have to do is turn it on and off. But what that turning on and off allows us to do is when the boat registered, we've got their dimensions. That's something we asked for. We now have the database of the slips available. We hit those against each other, and we're able to show availability. So I just want to give you a brief history of how we got here, because we didn't think we would be. And by the way, we did just move to the neighborhood and are enjoying it very much, just a short while ago. But in April of 15, we had this idea. We went to a startup weekend thinking we would learn a little bit about how startups worked. And I have to tell you, we won the weekend going away, completely unexpectedly, how it came together. We spent a long time doing market research, doing the financials, and building an MVP. Much longer, this timeline is much longer than most people would take on it. October 16th, we launched a product, but we were both working full-time. And I read that, someone said you never get traction until you're full-time on something. So I gave up the kind of work that I had been doing, and we've been working full-time on it. And now it's really about sales, refining the product, which is actually pretty solid, and marketing. So what is the market? we believe there's about 1.6 million boats with inboards in the U.S., which effectively defines a cruising boat for the most part. We found that 10 nights of the year away from the home port, that gives you 16 million bookings annually. And a booking, just to give you an idea, might be anywhere from $50 to several $100s. This is a limited market, and that's actually one of the things that appeals to us. You'll see later, but the way I phrase it is, I don't want to do anything that Google might be interested in, you know, because we're trying to carve out this little niche and stay alive within it.
Until they give you 100 million.
Well, that number, that'd be okay. The other thing we found in market research, which really surprised us, is that 50% of the bookings are now night of, and we just had no idea that was the case. And that allowed us to carve out this space. So the benefits of this for marinas is we give them a vacancy sign. Up until now, marinas never had a way to show visibility. You had to call, you had to send an email. They thought they were tech advanced when you could fill out this long form and send a request, you know, and get it back. They have complete control, instant payment, we have low fees. For boaters, it gives them choices, along with instant booking, which they've never had. They can filter, and we show thousands of marinas, whether or not they're working with us. And that's to provide utility and value to the boater as you try and build a two-sided market. So, I want to quickly give you an overview of what's happened here. When we started, there was no one, quote, doing this or anything like it. Someone told me by the time you get to market, other people will be doing this. It's just too obvious. And sure enough, there's really now 3 of us in the market. Docwa and Snag-a-Slip, by virtue of raising $7 and $5 million in private equity, were able to fire a lot of cannons and get out there. You know, they're ahead of us, no doubt about it. We are self-funding, and our goal is to stay that way. Their leadership, Docwa comes from HubSpot, Snag-a-Slip, you know, and entrepreneurs. They've been through this again before. My own background is corporate operations, global operations, and Sherry has worked with a number of startups. Do we have any life sciences people in the room, by the way? Okay, well, Sherry was the 6th employee of a company that now has a $500 million market cap, so she's been through it. The product strength, you know, just going, but I just want to point out, instant booking and low cost is really where we differentiate ourselves from the other guys. And we just get tremendous feedback whenever we're at trade shows, talking to boaters. They love the product, simple as that. So now our challenge is marketing and sales. It really is. We've built a product that people love. Everybody likes to think people will flock to it. The fact of the matter is, if they don't know about it, you got to let them know. So what we're doing now is with marinas, we're doing the trade shows that marinas are at, advertising, landing pages. We've got some salespeople started and using inbound marketing to be able to drive that B2B sales. On the boater side, we go to the boat shows. That's great feedback for us, and frankly, it's what keeps you going because people get excited and energized about the product. You see that. We're now starting to do a fair amount of digital this season with Facebook, Google, banner ads. And frankly, this is an area we have no expertise in. It's very much a learn as you go for us. So that tells you a little bit of what we're about. And we really welcome feedback, questions. One of the phrases I use is, I keep looking for reasons to stop investing in this business. And we haven't found them yet. So if you think there is one, let me know what it might be. But I'll tell you, cups of coffee we'd really like to talk about specifically are, you know, what to do after your dev shop before or after it goes bust. And we had a little bit of an existential crisis recently when our dev shop called up and said, you know, we've been sold, sorry, you're not going to be part of our future. We did go to the Ukraine. They did a beautiful job of building it for us. We've picked up a team of people that continue. But if anybody's been through this, what I've heard all too often is, you know, we have all our code secure and everything like that, but you take your code somewhere else, and what they tell you is, I'm sorry, we can't work with this. You have to rewrite it all. I don't know if that's true or not. Marketing in a two-sided market, you know, you have a chicken and an egg. So in a two-sided market, it's not interesting for boaters unless you have a lot of marinas. It's not interesting for marinas unless you have a boater, a lot of boaters. One way we try to address this is effectively our app is a very valuable dynamic marina guide. A lot of people still pay $30 for a printed marina guide. You would quickly figure out that this has everything that you would want in it. We have a team of 3 data people adding 10,000 marinas. Those are NC State college students that work for us. In fact, we got all these, Sherry and I, but a lot of people helping us in a lot of places. B2B inbound marketing, I think that's what's going to make us successful with the marinas. We're trying to learn our way along that. And then finally, if you know somebody, the technical, somebody that would be interested in doing some consulting around, we're trying to figure out now, the Facebook, Google ad, how do you know where that lead came from, who did the download? There's this whole world that gives you a tremendous amount of power. We can see that, but we're kind of suffering as we try and spend a lot of time figuring that out. And yes, we will buy the coffee, so you don't have to worry about that. Thank you. Whoops. Yeah. So we really welcome feedback, questions. That's what helps us. Any thoughts you might have. Sherry,
we'll open it up. Sherry's going to come up.
Yes.
Sherry there. All right, same thing, guys. If you'll just speak up, stand up. That way we can all benefit. We'll start on that side because we rarely start on that side. So go for it.
Hi.
Hi.
I think it's a great idea, and again, I'm not into boating, but is this seasonal by any chance? Because the winter months and then all
yes
those
and
things
no.
factor in.
What happens a lot of the time, it's seasonal for those people who stay put, but there's a huge group of people who are perhaps in New England in the summertime, and then they go all the way down to Florida in the wintertime or beyond. So there's a huge flow of people all the time. So there's enough of a market year-round.
Okay, I'm going to go to King Cotton.
Yeah, I sent you a LinkedIn request if you'd like to talk to a boat manufacturer in North Carolina. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, Jay.
Are you international?
We're working really hard to make sure the U.S. is solid first. Back end is all set up for it. We have alternate currencies and metric and so on already built in. As soon as we feel confident that the U.S. is solid, we can go global. Yes, absolutely. And we've had a lot of requests for that already from marinas and boaters.
Of course.
All right.
I think it's really cool that you've actually developed the marina database first, because that's sort of a fundamental to it. Then you want to know the sort of, how many slips are available at any particular time. Have you focused on a particular geo and said, look, I'm going to do Seattle, or I'm going to do New York, or I'm going to do Miami?
Well, we're focusing primarily between Boston and Annapolis at the moment.
Oh, okay.
We started in western Long Island Sound and kind of built it out to there. We have stuff all over the whole country right now, but that's our focus for this season, yes.
And that's really driven by investment. The
Yeah.
fact that you're looking at
We can't get farther than
it's
that
either our
today,
retirement or
driving.
it's no, but and that you can only really develop a market in terms of the investments you have to make. We can't take on the whole U.S. at once.
Okay, Eric, you're that middle guy.
I'd love to talk to you about the technology and digital marketing afterwards, but I want to get into the weeds with that now. But what do the marinas pay anything for this service, or what is that?
Yeah, we didn't cover that. I skipped over it. Yeah, basically what we do is we get a small percentage of that fee when they book. So the app is free for the boater, it's free for the marina, and when a boater books, we get a couple of percent. Our sales pitch is, this is night up. You're sitting on an empty chair. If we can put a boat there, it's just all gravy for you.
Plus, we're covering the credit card fee, so it's a very small fee to the marina then, so that makes us the lowest cost.
And by being night of, when we designed this, by being night of, it greatly simplifies a lot of what we're trying to do versus, and I didn't point it out, our two competitors, you have to request a reservation and then they get back to you with whether or not it's been accepted. So
they even post on their thing that it could take up to 24 hours for them to get back to you.
Right.
I'm sorry, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I want to get in.
what we have here is really get all the systems right, and that can run 98% of the business. You know, we should not have a heavy customer support burden. You know, the other areas. That's our goal, is to really have a straightforward system.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the chicken and the egg approach. I worked with a company that we had like restaurants, and then we had to have users on the app to redeem deals and everything. So, but with yours, it's almost like a no-brainer for the marinas, right? So, how? Yeah, well, that's the difficult part. But if you can offer that for free for them, and then have you thought about just marketing it at the marinas, or how have you done that to get users? Because that's essentially where your customers are, right? Is at the marinas.
Yeah.
How have you addressed that?
Well, we do. You know, it's hard. You know, somebody goes to a marina, frankly, they go to their boat and they're gone, right? We try and sign up the marinas. We ask them to, put a little collateral material that shows our name. But where we see a lot of boaters is we go to the major boat shows, and you're talking of thousands, over the course of a few days.
And then we go to the marina shows and speak to all the marinas, so we're trying to cover them.
And now we're firing up Facebook, and really,
yeah, they really don't hang out. They don't want to talk to the marina.
and it's we are resource constrained, so it's trying to make it work within that as well, which is a good constraint, by the way.
I think you answered my first question. You actually collect the money, or like through credit card? You don't.
We clear the card. We
pay for the clearing, but we don't touch it because
you
don't touch payment.
We use Braintree. We use a PayPal company, and we do what's called an adaptive payment. When the card is charged, 95% goes directly to the marina via ACH, and we get our scrape, which is the 5%.
And the second question, the one, I guess, weakness, I hate to use the word here, that I'm hearing is you're depending on, 500, 1,000 different marinas in your system. Maybe one out of every 3, the guy does an upgrade and he's already rented this slip and that slip, but you don't know it yet on your system. If you get people who don't comply with you, it can really mess up. This boat comes in, there's no slip there.
I didn't go through it. The marina has complete control. We don't touch the inventory. We have nothing to do with it. In other words, they're controlling their inventory that we're showing. When there's a booking, obviously they get an instant email notification, as does the boater. We've all had it happen. You show up, right? And the slip you were supposed to have isn't there. Marinas know how to deal with that. It's not pretty, but they do. They'll tie somebody else's boat up to somebody else and give you a slip, but that really should be an exception. They've gotten better, frankly. Our big competitors with millions of dollars have helped create and discipline the market, and we have benefited from that.
Can I add also that we have what we call the panic button. So if the guy's like driving home and he goes, oh man, I forgot to turn that thing off, I know we're full, he can go on his phone and literally hit a button and shuts it all down.
Yeah.
So, they are in control. They're posting what they want. Usually they go out every morning, they see what's available. Oh, I can put one in there, I can put one in there, and then they can just go on and go click, and they're done. So, it's up to them.
All right, Paul. Yeah, so my question has to do with barrier to entry. You talked about 2 of your competitors.
Right.
You also differentiated yourself from their products. What's to prevent them from doing what you're doing, given the pile of cash that
They
have?
are.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
They've already picked up a bunch of our stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, they should send us a check for doing product development, but that's another story. No, I love it, because basically, you have on a boat, there's 3-dimension variables, right? You have your length, your draft, and your beam or your width. And then you have a lot of variables on the slips. And then you're projecting it into the future, where dockmasters, just their behavior, they're not sure, they really hedge. And you could say, well, now they're sending a request, they're getting it back. Somehow you can automate all that. But it is a huge lift in terms of developing that. And when we saw that we could develop night of, which is 50% of the market, and they haven't touched us. One of them tried to go out with a product, didn't work. They were out there briefly with it. And I kind of know what they're up against. So that's how I see it.
Another part of it is that there's constant change when you're on the water.
Yeah.
Whether it's weather, someone doesn't feel well, or like say the engine, you got an engine light come on or something. So booking ahead is really hard. You know, you can't, or sometimes you're just against the tide and you're like, I didn't get as far as I thought I was going to get today, you know? So there's constant change. So planning ahead, I can't tell you how many times we've had reservations and we've had to go, sorry, I'm not going to get there today, or I can get farther and I'm going to keep going. So, and then you're into cancellation and maybe getting your money back. And so the whole night out thing is just much better.
For us.
And for a lot of people.
And they've had to pivot, by the way. The two companies, Docwa, I think, realized, well, wait, you know, how big is this market? And of course, they drove the pricing down to the bottom, which we can live with. But they're now trying to market marina software. They're kind of positioning themselves as marina management. 13 employees came out of HubSpot. You know, smart people, but I think they're, you know, and Snagaslip, the other competitor, has a concierge model where basically their pitch is, hey, we're going to take all these hassles away from you. You tell us what you want to do, and we're going to put your plan together. You know, we'll put a plan together for you. And you know, I'm watching for that all the time, but thus far they haven't come after us.
Okay, a couple things. Since I look at it from the data standpoint of it, from a sales point. So you're collecting all these vacancy spaces. So if someone doesn't fill them up, or if you take a look at that data, someone doesn't fill it, you're using that as a sales pitch because of lost revenue to the marinas, that if they use that, so you're doing that.
But what I want to be clear is, again, we don't do it. What the marina does, and I went by it quickly because I didn't want to take the time to explain it. We created a simple page, and I said, here's the profile of the marina. And then what they do is they just say, hey, I got 2 slips, I got 1 slip. You know, that's it.
So you're creating a dashboard.
Yes, exactly the term we use.
So on the other side of that too, once you have someone that books through you, are you collecting that data from those? Do e-blast going forward, or say planning a trip this week?
Yeah, no, we
do that.
We're capturing all. We have all the names, all the data. We capture all the data basically. You know, we get a dump and everything's there. And historically, we give all past orders to the marinas. The marinas are capturing, you know,
they can download all the
they can download who was there over the season. So all the data is accessible.
And could you open something to Triangle as a subsidiary called ParkSure?
What is it called?
ParkSure.
Oh,
so if I'm looking for shopping, especially at Christmas, where do you
There's
want to
a lot of people already doing that.
There's a lot of those apps.
That's a crowded market. We don't want to get, you know, we're looking for the one that no one else is in.
All right, we have a question over here.
So you say the night of, do you have it set up that if I know that I'm going to be down in Hilton Head for a week, that I can go ahead and pre-plan that, or is that
No.
I can only do the night
You can only
of?
do night of.
Okay.
And what, again, it's a benefit to the marina in that we only take a portion of that first night. If you stay on for the week, the marina gets the whole. They don't get anything taken off them. So again, we're the lowest cost, and we're, you know, one of the things that Paul didn't mention there, if you didn't want to drag it on, but if a marina shows their vacancy, then when you do a search in a specific any area, because you can search a location, that marina pops to the top. So there's incentive for them to show availability because they become the featured.
Yeah, that's part of the sales pitch, you know. Just
we have time for 2 more questions.
Okay, all right, here.
Apologize if I missed this already, but how many people are currently using the app? How many boaters do you have using your app, and have you had any instances where like the other gentleman was mentioning, where a boater tried to book a slip, thought a slip was available, and then it wasn't? And how would you address that?
We've not had that happen yet, thankfully.
Yeah, and by the way, this, you know, it said this is our first season. We've had a couple of bookings. We are really just starting out in terms of the market. You know, as far as the users go, I think we've got, it's a tiny number. It's maybe 1,200 in the past, you know, short while that we brought on. Back to, the double booking or slip not available, again, it's really not, because the marina's controlling it.
We also recommend they don't put them all up. You got 10 slips available, put up 5. You know, somebody may call on the phone and come in, or somebody may just show up. But you don't have to put them all up there just to avoid that possibility.
And that's where hotels, by example, have learned to deal with multiple demand channels.
And that's what they do.
You know, they've got all. We did. We spent a lot of time in hotels and restaurants.
In those back rooms where the computers are.
But so the marina industry has to adapt to having multiple demand channels, and I think they will. It's not hard. You just got to learn how to do it.
Okay, last question.
Question, Todd. If you would stand up so we can hear things.
You may have just spoken to this, but in the hotel industry, you have a checkout time of about 11 or 12, and then you can, if you're checking in, you can check in around 4 p.m. So how does that model work with SlipSure?
No, go ahead. I'm not.
Okay.
You show up when you get there.
It's a little looser. You show up when you get there. You leave. The dock master will literally, they'll either say, "Hey, are you leaving, or are you going to stay another day?" It's not as disciplined as the hotel model. One of our competitors does show check-in and check-out times, but the fact of the matter is, it's never been that. And people often arrive late. That's the other thing.
After the office is closed,
they'll arrive in the evening. Is not unusual.
I was just wondering whether someone showed up before the previous guests had left.
The marina is used to handling that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They'll either ask them to move on to who's there, who's supposed to be leaving. They'll either ask them to move on to another dock, or they'll, encourage them.
One of the little tricks is a lot of them have what gas docks or service piers, and they don't sell those. They don't consider those slips. But the fact of the matter is, if they're overbooked, that's where you wind up.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right.